So I'm gonna just share my experience, what I've been through, and the things that have come to me in this time. That way I don't need to share the same story 100 times. For those of you who don't know, I'm not feeling too great right now. I'm not in the best condition, my hair's not in the best condition, but that's not the main point. But I'm just gonna share what happened to me yesterday now. Yesterday I was on my way to work, and I'm feeling quite fine. I'm tired. It's morning, early morning. My wife is driving. Now she's driving, we get in the car, and it's like any other day. We get around about halfway to where I work, and all of a sudden it was like the left side of my chest just it started to kind of move within me, and I'm trying to think of the right words to use, and I don't have the words to use. I really don't. But it literally felt like some of my organs on this side began to move, and it was like felt the move, and I felt like the water or the blood like passing in between the organs as they moved, and it was like, whoa, what was that? What was that? And it just became more and more to the point where, like, the best I can describe it was like if you put your organs in a washing machine, and let's say you still have your your feelings, your sense of pain, and you turn on the washing machine and your organs are going around, and you can feel them going around, and you can feel the water going in between them. That's kind of what it felt like. It was so much moving, and I literally felt the organs moving inside of me. And when this happened, I was just like, what is going on? And it was hard for me to breathe, and I'm like my wife didn't have a clue what was going on. I didn't know what was going on because I've never felt this before. This is not like, like stress. Like sometimes, like with stress, you can feel like a press on your chest. This was something else. Like I literally felt my organs moving around out of control, and I had no control over it. And so I was holding my chest like to try to stop them from moving, but they were literally moving. I could feel them moving. I get to my workplace, and my wife, she's got our children in the car, and so I tell my wife, my thought is this will pass. This will pass. So I tell my wife to drop the eldest kid off at school, and I would ring her, if it gets worse or if it continues. I walk into the workplace, and within a minute I'm like, no way. I start working, and I just knew straight away, this is not working. I've got to get out of here right now. And so I got someone to cover my position, and I walked out, and my wife picked me up, and I get in the car, and I'm just in agony. And I'm thinking to myself, because I don't go to the doctors just because. I'm not that type of person. I don't go to the hospital just because I've got some pain. Like, I don't take painkillers just because I've got pain. That's just me. Yeah, the only time I take painkillers is if I go to the dentist. If I'm gonna get some kind of injection in me, or in my whatever, in my body or whatever. But apart from that, I never take painkillers. And I rarely go to the doctors or to the hospital. But if it is for me what I feel like life and death, or something that I just know this is serious, then I'll go. And so I'm saying to my wife, you've got to take me to the hospital. And this is, about an hour and 15-minute drive from us. And I'm thinking, with what's going on inside of me right now, literally, I felt like I've got to get to the hospital now. Because this is just, I can't describe it, but I felt like near to death. That's the best I can describe it. My wife drives off, and she tells me that she's got to put petrol in the car. And in my mind, I'm like, we don't have time to put petrol in the car. Hospital. But we need petrol. She goes to the petrol station, and I'm in so much pain. And it's like, because it's in my chest, it was like, because I've also broken my rib here. I broken my rib here almost 2 months ago. And so crouching down was just painful. So I get out of the car, and I just start walking, because I just got to get away. And the pain and the agony, and the only thing I'm thinking of is, this might be it. This might be it. And my wife is putting petrol in the car. And really, you want to just, be, in those last moments, the one thing you don't want is to be in a petrol station and your wife, putting petrol in the car. That's not a good last moment. And so these are going through my mind, and I'm like, no, God, you got to help me. And I'm praying. Because I literally felt like, I cannot describe it, but it just felt like my body is going to pack up, because it was out of control. It was just going crazy inside of here, and I had no control over it. We get back in the car, we drive off. My wife says to me, Albie, we've got to go home first, because we have the other 2 kids in the car. We have the baby in the car, and my wife doesn't have the pushchair. She doesn't have any food for the kids. She doesn't have any nappies or nothing like that, And in my mind, I'm thinking, we don't have time to go home first. Hospital now. I need a miracle. I need something to happen right now, because I'm going to die very soon. We don't have time to get a pushchair. But to be nice, I just, whatever, go, get it. And we're driving, and I'm just in agony, and I'm pretty much praying my last prayers, really. God. I get almost halfway, and no, I don't do this just because. I only do this when I feel like, okay, this is life and death. I start to text some people. I text my family, and I text a couple of others, and I just, as short as I could, just pray for me. And I wrote, heart problem, just like something like that. Just pray, heart problem now. Pray now. I didn't know if it was my heart. I just knew it's on that side, and it's just craziness. And I just pray for me right now. I send that, and I'm just in agony. We get home, and again I have to get out the car because crouching down is just giving me more pain. I'm in the car, and I've got to put my chest up like that, because it's like it's just pain. I'm just rolling. I'm just I can't be crouched down. So I get out the car, and as I'm walking, I'm like half crouched down, because I've got like hardly any strength, and I'm just praying. I'm praying. And it was like, this was about like between 10 to 15 minutes after I asked people to pray for me. And I know people were praying for me. I don't know how many were. I know people were praying for me, because I received text messages back in the car. So I know people were praying for me. And literally, as I'm just there in agony, like I'm half bent over like this, and then out of nowhere, like I didn't even do it. It was just like reflexes. I just raise up like that, and my head rises up, and my body straightens up, and it was just in a second. Yeah, like I can't click my fingers that good, but just baff, it was just bam. In a second, I just rose up, and I felt just in a second, something left, like something just went. Yeah, and it wasn't gradual. It just boof. Like I felt a shift, just boof, and I knew straight away. Okay, something just left me, and that agonizing pain just shifted. Now I wasn't 100% better, but it felt like a this I can't even explain it, but just this whole death kind of feeling left me, and I felt better. I can still feel in my chest like something's not good. I still felt pain, but this death kind of feeling just left me, and I knew it was because of the prayer, because I've experienced this many times before. I've been in near-death experiences, many times. Like I would need another pair of hands to count the amount of times I've been close to death or in near-death experiences, and where I've been prayed for. And it's the same kind of thing where you have this death kind of atmosphere around you, and the pain and just the presence of death. And in that prayer time, it's like something just lifts and just leaves. And so I recognized it, and I knew that, okay, people are praying right now, but I'm not 100. So I tell my wife this. She asked me if we want to go to the hospital anyway, because it's over an hour's drive. I said yes, I want to go because I want to get it checked out. We drive there, and I can still feel the pain. Like it's coming every now and then, but it's not what it was before. It was just this intense, agonizing pain. Now it was just like in like stages, and I had rests in between. We get there, the doctor, he takes his tests, and he can't find anything. Things seem fine. I will be honest, I didn't feel like he checked things out as much as he could. He pretty much just checked my breathing, and to check to see if my lungs were okay, and that was it, and goodbye. Now we're one day on from that, and I'm better. I'm not 100%. Now it's like I can feel this. It's like the best I can describe it. It's what a spear looks like when you play like javelin and you throw this long spear. It's like this sharp thing, and it sticks into the ground. It's like that. Like I feel like it's almost like someone's put a javelin kind of spear or something in my back, and I can feel this sharp thing, and it's small and round. I can feel it in my back. But I'm better, and that kind of near-death experience, the truth is this: it's not the first time where just out of nowhere, I'm fine, and out of nowhere something happens, and I feel like I could die. And all of those thoughts go through my mind. What's gonna happen now? And there's two things that come into my mind really. First is my family, because I'm not, we say, well, many people say, I'm not afraid of death, or I'm not afraid of dying. But what do we mean when we say that? I think we have these pictures in our minds of what death or what dying looks like when we kind of say those words. Because if I can say, well, I'm not afraid of dying, I might be thinking of, being an old person in an armchair, I fall asleep and I pass on. But there's different ways of dying. What I was going through, I could say was quite fearful, because it was out of my control. I've got no control. I'm in pain. I'm in agony. I'm not afraid of going, into the next life, but there's ways of dying, and certain ways are more scarier than others. But I'm not afraid of going into the next life because I know where I'm going. I know where I'm heading. But it is this thing of, why do these things happen? So many near-death experiences I've had in my life. I've literally lost count. And there's two things, because it's healthy in some way. Because it shows you, number one, your priorities. What are your priorities in life? And it also shows you, who are you trusting in? Yeah, so these two things, my priorities is my family. It's my family. And then number two, it's living for God. And those are my priorities. And so when I was going through this, and I'm thinking, oh God, this might be it. And my priorities are, God, I don't want to die right now because I don't want to leave my wife with my young children, and she's got to deal with my death and deal with the children growing up. I don't want that. I don't want my 9-month-old boy to grow up without a dad. Like, that's why I don't want to die right now. It's not because I'm scared of dying in that sense. Like, I have priorities in my life, and my family right now are a priority. So God, it's like, keep me right now. And obviously, for me, it's serving God, and so as it was yesterday, and just going through this, because literally the morning, that same morning, I just finished writing up a message, and I'm like, okay, God, I'm gonna do this soon. And then this happens, and I feel like this is it. This might be it. And I'm literally in that time where I feel like this might be it, and I'm like, God, and I'm saying to God, what about the message? Because it was on my computer, the computer was still turned on, and I'm thinking, my wife, I'm literally thinking this, my wife, she's gonna turn it on the computer and she's gonna read the message, and I'm not there, and I'm saying, what's gonna happen with the message, God? And so I'm thinking of my family, I'm thinking of the message, and it's like, God. And the other thing, which is good, why it's healthy, is because it shows you who you put your trust in. Because every time I've been close to death, there's always been one name, only been one name that I call upon. And it's not my mum and dad, and it's not my wife, even though I want my wife. Because when you're in times of great need, you call upon, most of the time, someone that is higher, someone that has more power, someone that has the power to fix the situation. And it is the truth that in those times we realize, where our trust is, who we put our trust in. And so as a Christian, but also as a non-Christian, we can very easily debate about why these things happen. Why so many near-death experiences? Why so many bad things happen to me? I'm a Christian, I love God. Why does this happen? Or I don't even know God, but why does God allow these things to happen? Many people say this is why I don't believe in God, because He's allowed all these things to happen. And I'm going through a process, like learning about these kind of things. And I think, it's important to take, take those examples we see in the Bible, and those tough examples. Because when you look at Paul in the Bible now, Paul, he wrote, we have the New Testament here, Paul wrote pretty much half of the New Testament. He wrote many of the books. He was called by God. He was doing miracles that have never been, like seen or heard of. God was using him so much and doing so many amazing things. But when you read about Paul, it really is amazing, and I think, one of the things that came to me when I felt better afterwards, is Paul when he's talking about finishing his race. He says, I finished my race. I fought a good fight. As I was going through that time and the pain and all those things, I'm thinking of things that I'm going to leave behind. I'm going to leave behind my family, and I'm going to leave behind this message, and I'm going to leave behind these things. And I'm thinking about these unfinished things. Like, things are not finished, God. I don't feel like it's time. And I believe a lot of people that do pass on to the next life think the same things. They feel like it's not time. It's not time for me to go. I have unfinished business. Paul, he knew when it was time. He said, I've finished. I'm done. I've done, the race. I finished the race. And even more than that, he says, I fought a good fight. And I'm like, wow, that's where I want to be. When it's my time, I want to feel like I'm done. I finished my race. Like, I finished it. I didn't get halfway and just, and then game over. I finished it. I went all the way. I done everything that I could have done, that I should have done. I finished the race. I finished my race, and I fought a good fight. Not just, I fought here and there. I fought a good fight. I'm done. And it's like, yeah, that's where I want to be. I don't want to be thinking of unfinished business. I want to read from 2 Corinthians. Let me find it. Because it's Paul, and he's talking about his life, his hard life. And I personally, I like it when people be real, talk real life. Talk about problems and issues, because it's life, it's real. That's why I like the book of Psalms too, because Psalms many times is real, is down to earth. They're talking life, and many times we got to talk life, talk real life, And Paul, he writes in 2 Corinthians, and this is verse 24. 2 Corinthians 11:24. He says, of the Jews, 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. Okay. Basically, he's saying, I received 39 whips, and that is torture. 40 whips is pretty much death, yeah? He's saying, I got whipped. I got whipped hard with these whips with glass and metal and all of these things in. They tortured me 5 times. I got tortured 5 times. Yeah, this is Paul, who was used by God, who wrote half of the New Testament. He was tortured 5 times. Yeah, basically he was near to death 5 times. Yeah, this is a godly man. This is a Christian man, near to death 5 times. Thrice or 3 times was I beaten with rods. He was beaten up. Once I was stoned. He was stoned. Okay, that's also a near-death experience. They threw stones at him to kill him. They tried to kill him. He almost died. So he almost died 6 times now, you can say. He says, thrice, 3 times I suffered shipwreck. He was shipwrecked 3 times. That's more near-death experiences. A day and night. A night and a day I've been in the deep. And he goes on and he shares all of these things. The pains and the problems, yeah. You read about Paul, you see how many times he was close to death, how many times he was attacked, and he's a Christian man. And we many times as Christians, we often focus on these things do not happen to a Christian, but it happened to Paul. He was close to death many times. He was persecuted, all of these things. And when we get, into chapter 12, where it's talking about Paul's thorn in the flesh, this is something that Christians debate over so many times, this thorn in the flesh. What was Paul's thorn in the flesh? It says, chapter 12, verse 7, and it says, "And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh." And people, they discuss, these things, and some say, the thorn in the flesh is what he's talking about before, the persecutions, the weakness, and all of these things. Some people are saying the thorn in the flesh was a sickness, because he's talking about a thorn in the flesh, that he was sick. And I'm like this, yeah. I've been, looking and researching and reading and things like that. It's like this. I've showed this before, but this is a fruit. Many times in life, we focus on fruits. And it's not a bad thing. It's good to look at fruits. But if fruits is all you look at, you're going to miss what's in the root. The Bible talks about fruits, and the fruits are basically what we can see, the things we can see. It's the produce of something. But the fruits are just an indication of what is in the root. So when I see the fruit, I understand, okay, somewhere there is a root to this, and it would be an apple root. Now, this is key, because when I can understand this, I can understand what is going on in the unseen realm, in the unseen places. I don't need to see the roots of the apples on the apple tree. I just know when I see apples hanging on a branch underneath the ground, even though I don't see them, I know there are roots that are producing apples. There are apple tree roots. I don't see it, but I know it. And it's the same in the spiritual. When you see the fruits, it shows you the roots. So when you read about these things going on in his life and the persecutions and all of those things, when you read in Galatians 4, when it's talking about Paul being sick and weak in the flesh, these are all fruits. They are fruits of something. Yeah? They show you something. And they show you what is in the root. And so what we do with Paul and Paul's thorn in the flesh, we talk about the fruits, and we discuss the fruits. Well, I see, like it's like this. Like, well, I think it's this kind of apple, and I think it's that kind of apple. You have different types of apples. And so we're discussing apples. But we can discuss something even more. We can discuss the roots. Because the roots show us what the fruits really are. And it's the same here. Because the fruits are the persecutions, the near-death experiences, the hard times, the beatings up, the sickness. All of these things are fruits. But there is a root. And people often jump over the root, or push the root to one side, or brush the root underneath the carpet, because I don't really know. Maybe it's just too much to think of. But it's important to know the roots of a problem, because then you can attack at the root, or then you can understand how to live your life when you understand the roots. So the roots of all of this, all of the near-death experiences, all of the beatings, the persecutions, the sickness, they can be summed up in one verse. In verse 7, the second half, straight after he says, that he's been given a thorn in the flesh, he tells you what the thorn in the flesh is. He says, the messenger of Satan to buffet me. The messenger of Satan to harass me, to persecute me. He says, I was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan. He was given a messenger of Satan. He was given it. Now that's important to understand. He was given it. He was given a satanic angel or a demon to buffet him. Yeah, basically to persecute him, to harass him. That's what's going on. What is going on? We can discuss fruits all day long, or it's this and it's that and all of those things. What he's trying to tell you is what is going on. He's getting to the root. It's satanic. It's demonic. What's going on is he's being attacked by unclean spirits. That's what's going on. That's what's causing all of these near-death experiences and all of these problems. It is demonic activity. That's what's going on. That's the problem. And we're here discussing whether it's sickness and whether it's this and that. That's not the issue. The issue is Paul is being affected by demons. That's the issue. And for me, that is the key point. Not what the sickness is or what the persecutions are. It is the fact that he is being affected by demonic forces. And this is Paul, who wrote the Bible. Because, I can look at my life and I can be like, God, I've been close to death so many times, and this happened and that happened and that happened, and I'm just looking at the fruits and I'm telling Jesus about all of the fruits, all of the things that's happened, all of the things I can see. And I can forget the root of the problem. And Paul, what does he do? He prays. He says in verse 8, for this thing I besought the Lord thrice, 3 times, that it may depart from me. I prayed 3 times that this thing would leave. Get away from me. I don't want this. It's hard. You're persecuting me. I don't want to hear these things. I don't want to see these things. I don't want to experience these things. And he's praying, get away. And he gets a clear answer from God. And many times we can be praying and wanting an answer from God. Many times the answers are actually in here. And we want to hear here. And he can, but many times the answers are in here because this is called the word of God. God speaking. And so many times God answers through here and not always here. And so God answers Paul and he says, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Basically God saying, no, I'm not taking it away from you. I'm not taking this demon away from you. That's basically what he's saying. I'm not going to take this away from you. Why? And he explains why. Yeah. You get to verse 10 and right at the very end, really. He says, when I am weak, then I am strong. God allowed these things to happen to make Paul stronger, so that he wouldn't become too prideful, because God gave him a lot. And God, he knew Paul. He knew Paul, yeah? And God knows me. And sometimes God, he knows a person. He knows you more than you know yourself. And he knows what you need. Sometimes God allows things to happen because he knows what you need. Sometimes God allows bad things to happen because he knows what you need. He knows the only thing that's going to help you out right now is if I allow this to happen. The only way I can get into your mind or kind of get your attention is if I allow this to happen. It's the only way. Sometimes, it's like life is so good and we go on holiday and you're healthy. And so why would you need God? And God knows you. And he knows, the only way I'm going to get your attention is if I take things away from you, is if I allow this to happen. That's the only way you're going to get before God and say, God, it's the only way. And so God knows these things. And so God, many times he allows these things to happen so that when I'm weak, then I'm strong. I remain in a place where my mind is on God. I know if God just blessed me, if God just allowed things to happen, if God just allowed everything to flow, then I know my mind would go poof, big, prideful. And so God, many times, he allows things to happen to keep me in a place where my mind is humbled, and I'm in a place where I'm always in need, and I'm always asking God for help, and I'm always in need of help. And that's a healthy place to be in. It's a healthy place to be in. To be in a place where you're in need and where you realize that I can't do it without God. And so these are just the thoughts that have just come to me from this time. That God, he allows things to happen. But I want to leave you with this. Even though Paul, he suffered near-death experiences time and time again, and he was, persecuted by demonic forces, he still finished his race. The demons, they tried to take Paul out of the race. Okay, that's one of the reasons why he experienced near-death experiences. I believe that's one of the reasons why I've experienced so many near-death experiences. The enemy wants to take you out of the race. The enemy wants to take you out of the fight. And so he's fighting and he's causing things to happen because he wants to take you out of the race, out of the fight. But if you look at Paul, he finished his race. He fought a good fight. He didn't leave things undone or to be done or unfinished. He finished. He finished his race. He fought a good fight. And I think that is a great place to be in when you close your eyes for the last time. To be able to say, I fought a good fight. I finished a race. I've done all that I could do. And that's where I want to be. And so today I'm alive. I'm alive again. And so my mind is, let's continue. I want to continue. I want to finish my race. I want to fight a good fight. I want to keep on fighting. One of the reasons why Paul says, I fought a good fight, is because life is a fight. The Bible is very clear. It says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of darkness, the rulers in wicked places, demonic forces. That's the fight. Christians, we're fighting against demonic forces. That's why he says, I fought a good fight. I've been fighting my whole life. And he's fighting, and I fought a good fight. There was a good fight. A real good fight. And I finished the race. And what a way to end your life. I fought a good fight. And that's where I want to be. I want to be in a place where I'm like, yeah, I fought a good fight. I want to stand before God and feel like it was a good fight. By the grace of God, I've done a good job. I fought a good fight. And I finished the race. I didn't give up. I kept going. And that's my encouragement to you, anyone that watches this, to fight a good fight. Go all the way and finish your race. In Jesus' name, peace and love.